Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. All right.
Cool.
Welcome to this podcast is Uncalled For.
What's uncalled for about it?
Well, you can't tell anybody this.
I'm listening.
Oh my God, what are you doing?
Don't be ashamed to be a supporter of Barack Obama for the next 2 years or for the rest of your lives, because you should be proud of what you've done.
I worship Cthulhu just for the free beer.
But you didn't even give a chance for a wild card spot.
Well, the name of this podcast is Stuff Uncalled For?
This podcast is uncalled.
Podcast, all right.
Yeah, that was the most ridiculous ending to that game that I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up. Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up. Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up.
We're looking at each other in the eye. We're not going to say anything derogatory to the other person. And, of course, neither of us is drunk.
Another thing that differentiates Mormonism from Catholicism is I don't hear Pope Francis saying that he's a prophet, seer, and revelator.
See, this is a disgrace.
Hey, we're getting somewhere.
And now, your host for this podcast, Mike Chernefsky.
Fuji!
Welcome to the podcast. So today we're going to start with a poem. This is called the Iroha. Iroha ni hoheto chiri nuru o wakayo tare so tsune naramu ui no okuyama kehu koete asaki yume mishi wehi mo sesu. Roughly translated, even the blooming flowers will eventually scatter. Who in our world is unchanging? The deep mountains of karma, we cross them today, and we shall not have superficial dreams, nor be deluded. Why am I starting with this poem? Because today's guest was forced by me to recite this poem in a little piece of film, specifically Tales from the Interim Net, episode Gamma, Kata of the Dragonborn, which will be in your show notes, and we'll use that clip as our first transition. Today's guest is an actor and overall creative person who works, his day job is he's a chef around town. And if you follow him on social media, he is quite, shall we say, philosophical. So please welcome Chris Lyman to the podcast.
Watashi no ato o surihen shite kudasai. Iroha ni hoheto.
Iroha ni hoheto
Chiri nuru wo.
chiri nuru wo
Waka yo tareso.
wakayo tereso
Sune naramu.
sune naramu
Ui no okuyama.
ui no okuyama
Kehu koete.
keru koete
Asaki yume mishi.
saki ume ishi
Wehi mo sasu.
rehi mosesu.
So Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Mike.
So we're talking about how we got to know each other in the first place, and that is Tales from the Interim Net.
Through email, right.
That's correct, through email and social media and actually doing the thing. So.
I believe I responded to an ad. You put out an ad for Tales, and I responded to it because it was an attractant. We work jobs they really don't demand us to be excited. They don't speak to us and say we want to have fun with something. A lot of jobs are like that. So that's why I thought it was such an. I was impelled by it because it was such an attractant inherently that. And you accepted when I responded to it. You accepted.
Mm-hmm.
That's my clearest memory of it, but you might have a much clearer memory.
All right. I do have a very clear memory of your performance.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
And it sucked. It was
all good.
terrible.
No, it was good.
Okay.
It's good. It was one of the. It was one of the 9 that actually got finished. So.
Gamma.
Yeah.
Gamma
Episode
fire.
Gamma, the Kata of the Dragonborn.
I like that you speak Japanese, and that you had it involved being somebody who wasn't completely human, and that I had to learn lines in Japanese. That's all. That's why it was such a. And then that wasn't completely revealed in the ad, to which I responded. However, it was revealed later on,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, this guy's intelligent, memorizing lines in Japanese. Okay,
Yeah.
kind of fruity that I like that so much, but whatever, I don't care.
That's cool. That's
great.
cool. Yeah, I actually studied Japanese in college. That's how I came to know the language.
That is not at all a superficial curiosity. So that was what I thought was very fun. It was a cerebral, a mental practice. And thank you for giving that to me.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I do remember everyone else kind of slightly butchering your character's name, but for the record, anyone who's listening who was on Tales from the Interim, that his character's name was Zencho. Everyone kept saying Zenchu.
Yeah.
No, the OU had written that specific order, and if it's Japanese being written in Romaji, also known as our everyday alphabet, that's a long O sound, not a U.
Yep. I remember looking into it phonetically and going, yeah, my pronouncements are most likely utterly incorrect.
What's funny was EJ Tangonen. I coached him on his Japanese because he spoke a fair amount of Japanese in that episode as well. Waking you up, and then afterwards with the aftermath with the
Yes.
Stone Corporation, he had to say a bunch of Japanese words, and I distinctly remember sitting in another coffee house coaching him on how to say those lines and everything, but he still managed to butcher your name.
Yes, he did. And it was treated with lightheartedness at most. But no, there wasn't. As with anything, there's a need for correctitude, accuracy, precision, what have you. I just liked how it was it was a very organized script, and it was, had it, I don't know if you can, I don't know if I'm permitted to speak on things like production value,
Please do.
but if it were really motorized, as a huge, with a large budget, I think it would have been really cool because it was so organized as a story and as a script. Had a lot of organization. Reading the script was, it was syntactically competent, which is not, it truly is, that's not something you always encounter from other people.
Exactly.
Most people are, you've heard of morphological syntax, but that's what happens when people mispronounce things, but not most people, but a fair amount of people who simply aren't practiced, don't have that kind of syntactical competence in mind. So I thought, man, if this had been backed by a huge budget, it would have been married well with the organization of the story and the script.
Yeah, I agree. With a large budget, larger than.
And you were able to attract a lot of people to it.
Oh yeah.
That who went to Los Angeles, you attracted a lot of people to that. I was like, that's very.
Yeah, Adam McKeith was in L.A. for a little bit. Ellen Califorts is in L.A.
Yes.
And a lot of.
And Ellen was very beautiful, and she was very attracted to your material. I think it was so attractive because it was so organized. It just appeared to be something that people wanted to do. So, in truth be told.
Yeah.
If I'm interrupting, yeah, let me know.
No,
man.
that's perfectly all right.
The shock,
You know, I
the
think
ankle shock on my shock device on my ankle. Switch that up if you need to, dear man. But what were you saying? You were saying I will not interrupt you.
I totally agree. We could have used a larger budget than we had. I pretty much paid for 2 whole days at that studio It
was a badass studio.
It was.
I think it shut down.
It did, unfortunately.
Because people it's about money. But the experience was so cool because I think it was with you one of the first days. It was in the summer.
Yep, that's true. Yeah,
and
you
I was
were
in May.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, we actually shot in August.
And May through August.
Yeah, pre-production started in May and everything, and then we actually started shooting in August, and probably wrapped up shooting around December, January.
Great.
Yeah, that's
terrific place.
Studio.
It's sad to shut down.
Yeah, that studio I paid pretty much inheritance is what I paid for that studio for the day.
Yep, that's how it goes sometimes. Scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
Which is what I did for my podcasts.
Yeah. So.
Wow, what a terrific place, though.
That's a good transition. Let's talk about. I understand you have a podcast now, so.
Well, maybe should we tell people about the plot of Tales? And it was I think it's too organized a story to get away from talking about plot, subplot, complot.
Okay,
and
so
antagonists and protagonists.
So overall, Tales is a police procedural. Takes place in a future version of Los Angeles. And the interim net is kind of a more advanced version of the internet, where you can actually plug your brain in and everything, and cyborgs are a thing. In Chris's episode specifically, he was a type of cyborg we called Matsumoto cyborg. So we wound up classing 3 different types of cyborgs. We had the stone type. I'll put a Star Trek analogy here. Think being assimilated by the Borg.
Yeah.
That's your stone types. You have Hansonians, where we're reanimating corpses.
This is the in-depth Nerdist session.
Right.
Which is, I'm not at all offended. I think it's, how else do you tell a fucking story?
Right. And there's actually a more recent Trek parallel to your character. Your character was called a Matsumoto cyborg, where they were grown in a lab with all the cybernetics.
Bioengineering.
Yeah. I don't know how much of a Trek fan you are, but
intensely a Trek fan. I remember my mother took me to Star Trek Generations when I was a kid, 1994, to the movie theater, and it was just the Generations to me spoke to me the most out of all the films. So very intensely. I'm not so much the nerdist about it, but conceptually and just the beauty of the content of Star Trek Generations was I don't know. It just seems to be intensely influential.
Okay, I'm not even referencing the movies. I'm referencing Star Trek Picard.
Yes.
Which we're halfway through the first season now.
Yep.
And they introduce a couple of characters who are androids that were grown out of a petri dish. And
yes.
Everything. So great minds think alike.
So back to the first tangent.
Yeah.
Not trying to get away from what you pointed out in the beginning. But yeah, Star Trek influence.
Mm-hmm. That should be an episode of the podcast, actually, just me talking about my Star Trek influence.
Yeah, it should be. I think
maybe
while cooking, I would turn it on and listen to it or something, because I was just so in love with Star Trek Generations. I thought, wow, still, you watch it, the bottle hitting the spaceship, champagne bottle, still great.
Right. Yep. So, now we can talk about your podcast. So.
If you want to.
Please.
I started doing I started working with 825 Studios in Westport. And 825 is named after the street, which is their thing. It's a very beautiful studio, very organized, competent studio space with very organized, competent technical work done on audio recordings. And realized that there was a world of sound beyond. What started as a narration evolved into a much bigger curiosity. I thought the impetus for that was the job market struggles. What if there is a world beyond being punished arbitrarily? You can sit down with someone, do a show with them, and it's the exchange of knowledge, and it can be very funny, it can be very serious, it can be horrifying. And I started doing it at 825 Studios, and moved it around to other studios, like Studios Unlabeled, where it is a big studio experience. You get the guest to sit down with a beverage of his choice. We decided, I'm a teetotaler, but I said, how is this interesting to someone if you don't sit them down with the options of payment, drink, food, which is something I probably would really like to do with you, because I would go from studio to studio to sort of tweak details about the execution of the podcast. The studio isn't available today for this thing, or isn't available today at all. From the curiosity of starting a narration there that was called Vaughn, that was written by a woman named, a short story writer named Robin Green, I did a narration in accents. I was always told I could do voices, so I did voices. I started 3 shows, total 3 podcasts. One was Indian Channel, the second of which was Savages, and the third of which was Words for Mercenaries. Those were the 3 podcasts that were created from the curiosity about inviting a guest, sitting him down, and I didn't want an experience that was fragmented and choppy, spotty. So I wrote scripts for each episode, and I love words. I love syntax. I love syntactical competence. When I read a book, I'm always examining what's on the page more than once, and that it couldn't be too fragmented. The guest didn't. A lot of people have their insecurity. You probably experienced this from other people. They have an insecurity about doing talk shows or podcasts. You see a very fluid process with everybody's into Rogan, which is perfectly all right. I'm into Rogan. He is what you call a trendsetter, a jet setter podcast. He is one of the quintessential figures. Who else would it be? But everybody dropped Joe Rogan. I love podcasts in general. I think they're brilliant. But because people were going back to that original tangent, because people were insecure about it, I thought I have to anchor them mentally with a script, so that if they pause too much, hem and haw, we go back to the script, and it gave them a chance to create their own experience. I'll send you the script beforehand. What we do is an email and a phone call. What do you want to talk about? And if you're not comfortable talking about one thing, we'll eliminate that. And based on your answers, the good thing about a script is based on your answers, it's very committed to time. You can be on time, very committed to the concept of time with a script. If it's 2 hours total, we would sit a guest down for 2 hours. We would start that script and then end it in the course of 2 hours. Very cut and dry, very sharp, tightened up. So the developing that experience was a very disciplined experience, and what I've learned from jobs is that people who get arbitrarily punished or fired have plenty of discipline. It's more about, I don't think pathology in the job market is emphasized enough, but that's why I started my podcast, and I paid guests. I worked 2 jobs. I worked 16-hour days to pay guests and to pay the studio for podcast. I have a podcast I'm finishing up now called Song of Psychopaths, Words for Mercenaries. any question, am I going, if I'm talking too much, and if we're committed to time, stop me. What can we do better?
We're still good on time. So, yeah.
And I don't think my reasons for doing a podcast are much different from your reasons. Because we have these subject, you have a subject, or subjects, you have groups and subgroups of things, tangents, and it's committed to time. I don't think structurally mine is very much different from yours, except these are 2 3-hour, 3-hour podcasts. Because I was attracted to, and we also put music. I played a lot of electrical and classical guitar, as did my twin brother, and we really produced, in between 2009 and 2011, we produced a lot of recordings. And a lot of that guitar that goes on Words for Mercenaries and Savages, and is, except for Indian Channel, which is a comedy show. That's an impressionist show where I do, well, I'll get into that later, but the music, I wanted music, I wanted alcohol, I wanted music and pleasure to be involved, because I didn't think I had a good formula if I could. Because I'm fine not doing any alcohol.
Yeah.
But what about all these people you want to interview? How do we really attract a broad base? How do we get as many different kinds of personalities to sit down and talk without a pleasure experience? It's a posh, it's a glamorous studio space. The guest sits behind the glass. And from there it developed into a 2-host thing. Jake Horde was a guy I worked with. Excuse me, and he was very. I thought he was a very funny, mercurial person who would be really good at talking to another person, and and he's funny. So it developed into getting him in. And the last Savages podcast we did, Savages is about interviewing people from all walks of life. Words for Mercenaries is about my writing, and the very gun-for-hire nature of existing as a human being, existing only for practical reasons, basic needs. That's Words for Mercenaries. Savages is about walks of life and all the aspects pertaining to these walks of life. Last one we did was Medicine Chef with Lance Gibson and Jake Horde, Executive Chef Lance Gibson, who was in Feast, April 2018, and Jake Horde and I both worked under him, so I got them together, and we interviewed, and that went out, and Mikey, my twin brother's guitar, electric guitar, was refined by Mitchell, a studio technician, who did a good job on it, and then refined by, I have 3 studio technicians. Max went to IT because he has bigger financial needs, and that's why I was really keen on making my podcast very much a financial project that wouldn't be in one place. You could take it to this location. You could go to this city and get paid from this studio if they like your pitch. I wanted it to be very much a financial experience, whereas other people are sitting down and not paying people. I was thinking about how can I make this more of my job, and that's a very interesting subject. How can we? That's talking about changing your life. But I could not get away from the wrath of the job market, so that's why I started. That is the main reason I started the podcast.
Yeah. So this podcast, the longest episode, if we're talking about episode length, an hour and a half. And this was with 2 of my old buddies doing warehouse work.
Yeah.
All right. And alcohol was involved with that one.
Nice.
And I've only had the script 1 episode so far, and that's because I was asked to type the answers in advance, and everything. And but usually it's just been freewheeling and everything.
And with your friends, you can talk about anything, and it's very fluid. And people that you share a lot of content with.
Exactly.
I can see the difference between that and like I had a cop scheduled, an FBI agent, food and beverage director came on, executive chef came on, But with them it was very different. Yeah, the script was necessitated. Keep going though about yourself, your podcast. Yeah.
All right. And I started this podcast mostly out of boredom. Not much going on at the time, but before we started, you talked about we're all getting older and everything. I'm already over 40.
Yep.
And I thought
when you met me, I was 27, 26, 27. Yeah. Now I'm 32. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 41 now.
Yeah. Happy 41.
But
nightmarish. Age is nightmarish.
yeah, I am starting to feel the body breaking down and everything. But,
yeah.
But I thought I've lived some interesting experiences, and what better way to explore those experiences than in podcast form? I've already done a couple of other podcasts, so why not do it and save myself the chore of writing everything down.
Yeah, it is nice to have a departure from rigorous mental work. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I understand that departure, and when you put yourself in a certain setting, the content just flows. Yeah. It's very fluid with friends with whom you share a lot of content. Mm-hmm. And that is, I get it, that's a very nice departure from a lot of laborious mental involvement, shall we say. Yeah. Yeah. But you're pretty, from what I noticed about you, you're pretty introspective guy. I mean, you play chess, and that's something we agreed to talk about a little bit, but yeah, I agree. Even, you're a mental person and you still want to have a departure from that. Yeah, that's totally believable.
Mm-hmm. And we already have a couple of episodes on the podcast about chess.
Mm-hmm. I see. I'll have to listen to those. That's pretty cool.
It's the one with Davon Williams. Yep. Is one you need to listen to, and the one with
guys, listen to that. This is good.
Yeah, and the one with Conrado Salazar is also mostly about chess, but it's mostly two guys in a car going to the chess club and trying to keep from getting bored. In fact, I saw Conrado on Friday, getting him a ride to the chess club, and we talked a little bit about that and some other stuff that was going on, and he was pretty amazed how well his particular episode is done. So,
yes.
Yeah.
That's very rewarding, I would think, is that someone really appreciates how you've structured the episode, and that's a reward I've experienced as well. Mm-hmm. And I hope, and age sucks. We all know it. I'm 32 and going. There's a difference when you hit your 30s. Things change. You've been through that change yourself, and are still going through changes. Yeah, frightful. But that sort of thing, being rewarded by competence and structure of your podcast, will carry you through time, and its value. And you gave that person value across time. So that kind of rewarding experience carries you through the aging process, which just sucks.
Yeah. But so far doing this podcast has been a great experience. It's allowed me to revisit parts of my life. Heck, I've had high school buddies on this podcast too. So
nice.
Yeah.
Back to, and you still have those people, and people come forward for you. Very nice.
All right. So,
are we finished? No way, man.
We're getting close to finished. Okay. So, is there anything else you want to talk about? Plug your podcasts or anything?
Maybe we should tell everybody where our podcasts are. I mean, when's broadcast day for this podcast, if I may ask?
We release for season 2 every other Monday, unless it's a special holiday. Like I did a special one for Halloween, I did a special one for Thanksgiving, but we usually do it every other Monday. for this podcast is uncalled for.
Great. I haven't listened to enough of your podcast because I've been in the job market looking for things, and but I'm getting in a situation where now I can sit down and listen to more podcasts, and thanks for that edification and the edification that you provided for others to be invited. Getting people involved and committed, I think that's very difficult, and I think it's very rewarding if there are as many people committed to listening to your podcast as possible.
Well, it's the same thing with film. If you stop to think about it, it's that's the tough part, is getting the people involved that are going to stay involved and everything throughout. So.
Here's where I think you're a brilliant guy. And that's very true what you said. I think chess is not something of which I've played enough. And I should, but here's something I wanted to ask you is why are people not playing chess? Because I got very involved I've met dyslexic people over the course of when I aged 30, when 30 hit, I became any superficiality I had about something vanished. And it was all about getting deep and studious. I met a lot of people who were dyslexic, who and I started researching the organ that controls strategy and problem solving, which is referred to as the angular gyrus. And chess players. You can definitely see the development of that organ. It's a muscle, and chess players really work that muscle out. Why do you think? Why do people not? Oh yeah, I like chess. I can do it, but they're not bad people. They're not stupid per se.
Right.
But they're not enough practice, and they don't want to get beaten by somebody who's better at it, so they avoid the chessboard. They're afraid of it.
I think it's a big
Big
thing. I think for a lot of people, they see chess and they think, oh, this is hard. I can never learn how to play it. No, just my current part-time job, I teach kids how to play chess.
That's great.
All right.
I think that's another thing that's great about you. Giving their minds exercise. Because, man, a lot of the time the stupid is in, and I'm not trying to be nuanced as a cruel person.
Right.
But the stupid is on people. It is really grabbed hold and is not leaving. So I think that's very important. Half the time my neighbors are all hacking cell phones from behind walls and talking to everybody. There is no learning experience. It's all pathology, psychopathological. And so I just think that teaching kids chess is, man, that's it's black and white. From that sort of thing is so starkly different from what my neighbors are doing and what people do today. But there is no learning experience. It's all about, it's in this they try to come at you with maybe a little bit of social strategy, like who's going to screw me over, who do I have to watch out for, where are the pitfalls, how do I have to be careful. But they've got it in this very pathological experience where they show you the merest pieces of social strategy, but there's really nothing to it. It's all the stupid is on people, and it's very there is something about it that is so socially. Excuse me. Good beverages we got here. Good appetites. Something that's so socially devolved and removed from anything good. So that's cool. I just thought that was an impressive feature of your personality, and your growth as a human being. I don't play enough chess, but
Yeah.
I'm certain I have the mind for it, and I think people shouldn't avoid it. We don't have IQs of 173 like some of these. There was a woman chess player. You probably are big into chess figures. What was her name?
I don't know women's chess players all that well. But
Mensa said quoted her as can't remember her name. IQ of 173, brilliant chess player.
Mm-hmm.
And her IQ improved, well, not to get too much into the IQ thing, but improved because she played chess. So great stuff.
yeah.
I think people avoid chess because they're afraid of the smallest amount of tension from problem solving, and then they avoid it because it's too painful. They think it's pain-stricken. The smallest amount of tension it seems to them a pain-stricken experience. But whatever, you know.
Yeah. It's not for everybody, but and it does take a lot of practice.
Yes.
I'm because of my job, I play it practically every day.
Mm-hmm. So you're good at it.
Multiple times. I'm not that good. I'm rated less than 1,000.
Yeah. See, but you put you avoid the laziness of fear and put yourself into a learning situation. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where the value by virtue of learning, and you really question cowardice and laziness, and I think that's where the value is.
Mm-hmm.
It lies the value of the activity.
Yeah, gotta stay active somehow, doing stuff. Otherwise, I'm gonna go insane. You know me.
Yes. We're aging. We have to give ourselves value because the body is starting to turn into sludge.
Yeah.
There is more hair growing in strange places. Amen, brother. Amen. Right. Showing that age who's best.
Yeah. By the way, I just turned on my iPad, and when you do so...
iPads are beautiful. These are your friends?
That's Conrado. Yeah. Well, just talking about it, and he is being pictured with a grandmaster, Lucia Anand. This was taken a couple of years ago in St. Louis.
Nice.
Which has a very nice chess setup.
Yes.
Yeah.
There we go. That's what's going on in St. Louis, apart from the blues.
Yeah, apart from the blues, apart from XFL, and of course, October 25th, 2021.
Very fun.
All right.
Thanks for having me on this podcast, Mike. It was nice. It was very nice diversion.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for agreeing to be on.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you, Chris, for being on the podcast today. Ways that you at home can help out the podcast. Tell your friends about it. Subscribe to the podcast. Like our Facebook page. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to donate on Patreon. Thank you so much. We will see you next time. This podcast is uncalled for. It is hosted, produced, and edited by myself, Mike Chernevsky. Opening music is Fantasia Fantasia by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Outro music is Traveler by Six Umbrellas. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution Share Alike license. Additional music included The Complex by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. And Morocco Sting by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license.
If you would like to support this podcast or any of Mike's other creative endeavors, please consider making a donation at patreon.com/Mike Chernevsky. That's MikeCzerniewski. Donations over $5 will receive a special thanks on a future podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.
You have become one with Bob.